Hey guys, it's your girl Jazz and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today, this video is going to be all about complexion and taking it to the next level, making your complexion look as flawless as you possibly can. So I'm going to teach you some tips and tricks to take your foundation, your complexion, your base, your ooh la la, if you will, to the next level. But you know what I gotta say before we jump into the video. I need you to subscribe. So if this is not your first time here, I mean, what you doing? Click subscribe. Come on, join the family. And if it is your first time, my name is Jasmine. If you do not know my name, it is Jasmine, and I am just here to give you all the tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. And you'll want to hit that subscribe button by the end of this video, I promise you, okay? And you'll also want to hit that bell so you can be notified every time I upload a brand new video. And you'll want to hit that thumbs up to give it a nice like for me. You'll also want to comment in the box below if there's any videos that you guys want to see. I'm always taking requests. So enough chit chat. You came here for the makeup, so let's get into it. All right, so best thing to do before putting on any of your foundation is going to be prepping your skin with skincare. Now, I've already prepped my skin with skincare. I do have a new skincare video coming to you guys soon, so be on the lookout for that. Once you have prepped with your skincare, we're going into primers. So I have two primers that I'm going to use today. The one for the center of my face is going to be the e.l.f. Putty Poreless Primer. Poreless Putty Primer. This one I like using in the places where I have a little bit more larger pores, if you will, and I want everything to be like really smooth. So for this one, I'm going to use in my T-zone. So it looks like this. You just go in with your fingers, and I like to put this here on my cheeks because that's where I see my pores the most. I'm also going to take a little bit of this and put it on my forehead as well. Next, for my primer, I'm going to do the Milk Hydro Grip Primer, and this is like one of my all-time favorites. You guys have seen me use this a ton of times, but this really does help grip and like hold on to that makeup for as long as it possibly can. So for this, I like to put everywhere else. So this is going to go pretty much mostly on the outside of my face. If you are someone who likes to use your brushes for putting on your primer, you can totally do that with both of these primers. You can use your brush and apply these the same way. All right, so now that you got your face all primed and ready to go, pretty much set up, you're gonna go in with two different things. If you are somebody who is acne prone and you do need to have a couple places on your face covered up, you're gonna go in with your concealer next. Also, if you're somebody who has a little bit more of discoloration, so maybe it's rosacea, maybe it's just hormonal discoloration, any kind of discoloration on your skin that you want to change the color to, this is your step right here. So for me, the only place on my face, I don't really have too many like bumps or acne scarring, but on my face, as you can tell, my cheeks and a little bit of my forehead, like this part of my face right here is pretty much the same color, but around my mouth is a little bit darker, and sometimes I just want it to be a little bit lighter. So this is where I'm gonna go in either with concealer or color correction. So you can either do both. If it's really dark, same thing for like underneath the eyes. If your under eyes are like super dark, this is where you're gonna go in with something a little bit more color correction, or you could just go in with a lighter shade in concealer. For me, I'm gonna go in with a lighter shade of concealer and then put my foundation on top of it. So for today's concealer, I'm going to be using the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer in the satin finish, and my shade that I'm using is Tan Neutral. It is very well loved. It is like almost on the empty side, so I mean, it's a really good concealer, works well for me. So what I like to do is dot the areas where I just need that extra help. So in this case, if you were somebody who was more acneic, you are gonna put those spots on those acne spots. Now you can either use a sponge or a brush to blend it out. For me, I'm going to use a sponge. I'm using the e.l.f. sponge, and I've been like really loving this sponge in particular because of the way it feels. It's not as hard as some of the other sponges, so this one is another one that I liked to use a lot. This is the Morphe sponge, but I have noticed over time it doesn't have that same puffiness and bounciness to it the more that it is washed and used. So I am not loving this as much as I used to. I have now started loving the e.l.f. one better, and of course it's cheaper. So I'm going to take the top end of this and press, bounce, make it do what it do. You know what I'm saying? I just gotta, you know, make it just take away all the sins on my face, you know? All right, so now that I've got my blemishes or discoloration, whatever it is that you are experiencing at the time, once I've got that covered up and right where I want it, it's time to go in with the foundation. Now, some people have to mix foundations. Some people have that like perfect good to go shade. For me right now, because we're like in between like spring and winter-ish, I am in between colors, so I do have to mix. So today I'm using the Born This Way in Chestnut. I'm using that, and then I'm also using the Maybelline Matte Poreless, and this is the Fit Me in shade 335. So I am taking these two together on the back of my hand and mixing that up a little bit. All right, so for foundation, I like to spot it everywhere that I feel like I'm gonna need the coverage and then blend out. So I'm gonna go in and do that. So I'm just gonna kind of take it on the back of my hand and start to apply it where it is needed. I kind of stay away from my under eye area because I am going to put on concealer there. So there's not a real need to put foundation there. I would probably only put it there if I had severe dark under eye circles. But because I do not, there's no need for me to waste that product there when I can apply it somewhere else that it's more needed. So we are going to do just that. Now I've got my foundation up in where I want it. So next you can either go in with a sponge or a brush, whatever suits your fancy, okay? I prefer to use a brush, something that is more compactful, so I can really get in there and make sure I get all the cracks, all the crevices, and I don't waste any product. So I'm going in with a buffing brush. This one in particular is from Bare Minerals. It is their Luxe Performance brush. And I'm just going to go in and really press into the skin with the foundation, making sure I get the maximum coverage on the areas that need it the most, you know. Alrighty, I feel good about what the foundation looks like right now. So if I were to put it on and I'm like, oh, I need some more, I could totally go back and put some more where I need it, but I'm feeling pretty good about the coverage that I got on my foundation. Now it is time to give a life back to the skin, because right now when you usually put on your foundation, you have like a blank canvas. You feel really naked almost, because you don't have that color that you used to have in your skin, where it's a little bit lighter in the center, a little bit darker on the outside. So that's where it's time to bring back in the color. Now it's really key about the products that you use next after you've done your foundation, because if you start just going in straight with like powders and you know, you don't use your liquids first or creams first, you can really start to mess up that base that you built. So this is where the skill and technique comes into play. Now I like to go in with what I'm going to contour with as a cream first before I use powder. So for that instance, I am going to go in with another concealer. This one is still the same brand, so it is the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer in a satin finish, and the shade I'm going to be using is Rich Cocoa. So I'm going in with this shade and I'm going to contour, and then after I contour, then I'm going to highlight. So I'm going to go in and dot where I want to. So I usually do 3 dots max on the places that I'm going to contour as far as my cheekbone, because I don't want it to get so large that it's overtaking my cheeks. And then I do a couple dots around my forehead like so. Same thing on the other side, like that. Now, I don't like to take the cream and put it on my jawline. Reason being is I think it gets a little bit too harsh for me personally. Cream is a little bit heavier than powder sometimes, depending on what you're using as far as color tone. For this particular color, it does go a little bit darker for me, and with my neck already being darker than my face, I think it takes it a little bit too far for me. Now, you could totally still put this on your cheek line if you would like to. Makeup is literally whatever you choose to make it, but this is catering a little bit more to my face without doing it like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, as far as blending, I am going to go in with the butt part of my beauty blender, or sponge if you will, and I'm just going to pat it, blend it, bounce it, get it popping, you know. Don't forget to take it back to your hairline. Remember, we don't want anybody being like, girl, what's going on? All right, so now here comes in some special tips and tricks that usually when you're watching people's videos, they kind of don't show you. They kind of just jump from, oh yeah, blend out your contour, and then they just jump from it looking fabulous, or you see that diagram where they got all the stripes on their face, and then all of a sudden it's just bam, gone, no lines. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to teach you their little trick here. So as you can tell, my contour, it's a little bit blended out, but you can kind of see where it starts, it stops, it's not completely blended out. Now, with your sponge, you went in and you kind of like bounced it around and you've blended it out, but we need it to mesh well with the foundation. So go back in with whatever you use to blend out your foundation, whether it be sponge or brush, and press in the edges of your contour. Press it right into the skin, the edges of the contour, on the top and the bottom. This is meshing the two colors together and creating a nice, seamless, flawless shade change. We don't want it to be, this is where the contour is, this is where the highlight is, this is where the foundation is. You want it to all just kind of like blend together like a beautiful rainbow, like beautifully just switches colors. You don't want it to be like really harsh. So I've taken that. Now I'm gonna go back in and just lightly go over, and we kind of got it where we want it. So now it is time to go in with the highlight. So I'm going in with my concealer, which will go underneath my eye as my highlight for the center of my face. So I'm going back in with the concealer that I use underneath my foundation. You can go in with a little bit lighter. It is all preference on how bright you want your under eye to be. So for me, I use 2 different concealers. So this is the first one that I used underneath where my chin was that I showed you guys. So I do the lighter color, which would be this, in the inner corners of my eye. I do a little bit right in between like my eyebrows, and then I'll do a tiny bit on the bridge of my nose, and then tiny bit on the tip of my chin. Now my second shade, this is one from Juvia's Place Concealer. I'm using the shade number 12, and I'm going to take this on a little bit further down and then on the outer parts of my eye. So kind of creating that triangle, but it's a little, you know, new age triangle, if you will, and on the outside like that. So going back in with my sponge, I'm using the tip of it now. I start blending out. I usually start in the places that don't need as much coverage. So my chin, being that I've already covered it up. My forehead, I mean, it doesn't really need much coverage because there's nothing there as far as like blemishes and you know, discoloration, and then nose, and then I do my eyes. Now the reason why I did it in that order is because I wanted my concealer that's underneath my eyes to sit just a tad bit longer, to give it a little bit more time to dry down, if you will, but give me some time so I could blend it out and give it a fuller coverage look. All right, let's blend. Alrighty, so we are blended out, and now it comes the time where I kind of explain why I use two different colors in the concealer. So if you're looking at my face, I've got the lighter part of my inner corner of my eye as this shade, so it really does open the eye area on the inside. And then I used my a little bit darker, like it's just a tiny bit darker than the center concealer that I use. I use it on the outer part and down here to kind of start to fade into my foundation, as well as into the concealer that I use for contour. Now, a lot of times you'll see people use like super bright concealer. You can totally do that, but I suggest that you do go in somewhere with something that is a little bit closer to the foundation that you're using, that will help to blend it in seamlessly. So that's what we did with having two different concealer colors. Now that I've got my concealer where I want it as far as blended out and into my skin, it's time for powder. So we're going in with some setting powder. I'm using my all-time favorite, which is the Laura Mercier. Now you can use the ones that have the different colors, so I'll show you one in particular, like this one right here is like more of a yellow shade that is from Beauty Bakery, and this is in the plantain caramel shade. This one is a little bit more on the yellow side. If I can get my camera to focus. So this one's a little bit more on the yellow side. I'm not wanting it to be like more yellowish, banana colorish today. But I will still use that sometimes. The Laura Mercier one is more of a translucent one, so that's what I'm going for today. So I am going in with my sponge, and I am coating it so I can get a good amount underneath my eye. I'm looking up and press. Going in with a little bit more to get a little bit closer to my eye. And that's about as much as I will put on. I don't feel like I need more than that. The more powder you put on, the drier your skin can look. So if you are not about to like heavily set your face with some setting spray to help blend and kind of melt that powder into your skin's gonna look really powdery. And for people who are more mature, when you have a bunch of lines on your face or underneath your eye, it's not the best to put on heavily amounts of powder. So if you are one of those people with those fine lines and wrinkles, I don't suggest that you put on more than this amount. So I'm gonna go in with the other side. And again, make sure you're like really pressing that into the skin, because this is what's going to help your concealer stay put and not start to move or fall in those fine lines and wrinkles or any type of creasing that you have underneath your eye. I usually take what is left and go over my concealer I put on my forehead, and then around my mouth, which is where I had that discoloration earlier, and I did put concealer there and then put the foundation on top. But like I said, I do take what's left on the sponge. I don't go back in and dip again because I don't want it to be heavily powdered there. Okay, so next, after we've gotten our face all set with the powder, whether it's translucent or colored, either one, now it's time to go in and bronze the skin. So we have contoured, but now we need to bronze it up, which will help the contour stick out a little bit more. It will also help define it a little bit more. And if you are someone who does like to tan, and so your foundation doesn't really necessarily match your skin, this is where you can add a little bit of color back into your face as well. So I'm gonna go in with a more fluffy brush. So I've got something like this, and I'm gonna go in with my bronzer, which is where? Found it. So I'm going in with my bronzer. This one is from Morphe. It's the Trailblazer shade. So I'm going in with this right here. So I kind of just bounce it in there like that. Tap off. Now the reason why I like to use a bigger brush is because I don't want it to look like a line. When you use a little bit big of a brush, you can really do circles and really make it diffuse out. So I'm going anywhere where I put that darker concealer. So I'm going here on my cheeks and really buffing it out. Don't forget to go towards the ear, and as you can see, it really starts to let that concealer really give it life, really give it some room to play with. So you want to put that anywhere where that darker concealer is. Now I am going to go in with this bronzer for underneath my chin. This is why I didn't put the cream concealer there, just because I want to take whatever I had on my brush and use that as making it closer to what my neck color is versus heavily making it as dark as what is on my cheeks. All right, so now that we've got that taken care of, so this point you can go in with the next two steps, which are totally optional. Some people just don't want to wear them, and that's totally cool. But the next step would be your blush and your highlight. So today for blush, I'm going to be using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Blush Trios. And this one that I have is called Berry Adore, and these are the shades that are in there, and I'm feeling like this pinkier shade right here, which is in the shade Dessert, right? No, Desert. Anyways, so next I'm gonna go in with my blush, my brush, tap it in, get some pigment, and I'm gonna go on the fronts of my apples of my cheeks and give myself some color. Now I will take what's left and kind of just brush it on my nose and run it through down to my cheeks like that. So next, highlight. For today's highlight, I am going in with the Makeup Revolution, their highlighter, and it's the collection is the highlighter Reloaded, but the actual shade in this is called Time to Shine, and I really love that highlighting shade. So I'm taking my highlighter brush and dipping into that, putting that on the high points of my cheekbones to give myself a nice little highlighting moment. So I am running it through a little bit of my blush and a little bit of my bronzer and contour. I don't want it to just be a straight line. Once I put it on, then I kind of brush it down to help it merge and melt into the bronzer and the blush that I put on. So that way it doesn't look like just a straight line on your face. So you brush it down into those other shades. Okay? So I am pretty much done with like the actual applying of products. Now there are other steps that some people take to like really like set up and snatch the face. So I'm going to show you those tips as well. So you can take the setting powder that you used earlier. Take your sponge as well that you used earlier. Put a little bit on your sponge. Tilt it to the side and cut underneath your contour like that. That starts to take the line and make it a little bit more cupped to your cheek. Now, cupping it to your cheek is totally optional. You do not have to do that. But if you are someone who do want that cupness to the cheek, that's how you get that. So you start to shape that how you want it. And then I don't like to leave it on there too long, so I go in pretty much right after I do it and buff it out like that. Now, you also can do contouring for the nose, this. So it's a fluffier brush, like an eyeshadow brush. I like to use this because I feel like it diffuses it and it doesn't look like just two straight up lines right on your nose. You do want it to be a little bit more blended out. I also do like to use the bronzer, so whatever shade or colored bronzer that you are using, I do like to go in with that. I prefer not to use the cream right now. I just don't feel like it's needed. I feel like the powder takes care of it. So I'm gonna go in with the powder from the bronzer on my brush and go down the side of the nose and take it into where the brow starts. So this little arch that you have in your brow and your skin in between your eyes, you want that to go all the way up there. You don't want to just stop right here on the nose. So I grab more product, go up into where my brow is, and it's lightly starting to contour, nothing too heavy, nothing too crazy. So you can see you got a little bit of shadow coming in here, and that's what you want. And I always say start with a little bit because you can always add more, but if you put on way too much, it's a lot harder to take it off. Voila, like that. Now, once you do that, you can go in with your highlighter that you used, and you can highlight the tip of your nose if you like. Some people like to highlight the top of their lip, depending on what lip color they're wearing. For this look, let's go ahead and do the tip of my nose. I'm not going to do the tip of my lip just for this look in particular. But yes, I will put some on the tip of my nose. Voila. So now what I like to do is I like to go in with a clean brush that is like a medium-sized brush. This particular one is from Bare Minerals, and it is the Dual Finish Blush and Contour brush. So it's a dual colored sided brush. And now I just like to take and press into my skin all the products that I have on my face, because the next step is going to be setting powder. I mean, not setting powder. Oh my God, what am I talking about? Setting spray is the next step. All right, so I'm gonna go in and set the face. This is the NYX Bear With Me setting spray. It is multitasking because it does prime, it sets, and it refreshes. So this is something really good when you feel like, okay, this is a makeup that I'm gonna have to wear for the rest of the day, and I am gonna need to refresh my face. Maybe I'm gonna get oily, or I just wanna make sure I look my best at 3 o'clock as I did when I put it on at 7 a.m. You know what I'm saying? So this is something really, really good for doing that. So arm's length away. And spray yourself, darling. Now I like to go back in with that same brush that I used to press everything into my skin and do the same thing now that the setting spray is on top. And then once I do that, I like to go in with my little fan here. So you can totally do your eyes first and then go into your face, or you can do your face first and then go into your eyes. Totally your preference. So for today's look, obviously the main focus was the face, so I'm gonna do my eyes off camera and finish off this look, and I'll be right back to show you how flawless this bee is. All right, I am back with my finished look. So as you can see, once you've got your eyes on, brows done, your lip on, you're looking fantastic, honey. You're looking fantastic. So, I mean, this is the finished look, and you can see that all the work, all of the blending, all of the patting, the bouncing, the spraying, it all pays off, and you have a flawless finished complexion look. So I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. I hope that you learned something new, something that you can take with you when you go to do your makeup for the next time, and you're able to upgrade your look, okay? And without further ado, that is it, guys. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.